Hi, I'm Jess Ingleking with Soundings Fine Audio in Denver, Colorado, and today we're going to be discussing how you can use A/B testing to find the next upgrade for your stereo system. So a lot of times when we get an upgrade for our system, a lot of people will just plug it in, jump to their conclusions on what they heard, and then immediately decide that this was the best thing to ever happen to their system or that this upgrade is a piece of junk. We're going to discuss how Soundings uses the ABA testing system, among other things, to help determine what really has the best efficacy and what gives the best positive changes in your system as you upgrade. So one of the first things I want to talk about is psychoacoustics in general. Our brain is wired to listen for changes in our environment. So if you just put something in expecting a change with a cable, with speaker positions, a new preamp, whatever it may be, we're wired to automatically look for whatever that change is. So if you go in thinking that it's going to be the best thing in the world, don't be surprised if that's what you find immediately. But then down the road, as you listen more, it might turn out that maybe it wasn't what you were looking for. And that's something to pay attention to with psychoacoustics. So we'll talk about some of the methods that will help avoid that pitfall. That's something that a lot of people come across when they're on this journey. The big technique that we use is called ABA testing. So you'll hear about A/B testing. Start out with your system as it normally is, make the change, and come to your conclusions. Listen to what you heard. We find, though, that you actually want to go back to the beginning. So start with how the system was, put in your new upgrade, and then go back to the original. That comparison can be a really big deal and can be kind of an eye-opener over what happened. The psychoacoustics can kind of play tricks on you, and if you think you're going to have better bass with this upgrade and you put it in, you hear, oh my gosh, better bass, only to go back to the original and say, well, wait a minute, the first one was actually a little better. We need this ABA testing for a good comparison. You can even take that a step further and do blind testing. If you have someone who can help you out, you can actually literally blindfold yourself and let them tell you when they've made the change and have them kind of maybe trick you. They tell you that this is A, this is B, and then back to A, back to B. And the key is when you're in the listening position that you do not know which one that they are putting in. So if you have a new preamp or a separate DAC, make sure that you don't know what's there so that confirmation bias doesn't sneak in and you accidentally tilt the scales towards what your favorite component might be. It's important to be honest throughout this. If you have a significant other or a friend who isn't into the hobby, you can do double blind testing. Don't tell them what the heck they're doing. Just tell them to move this cable over to here and then to switch from this one from time to time. And that way everybody can be real honest. Because in our industry, sometimes the person changing the cable, they have a bias as they're changing, and they're like, all right, here comes A again, and we know that that's actually their favorite or your favorite coming back. The more things we can do to remove those biases, the better off you're going to be in coming up with an honest result. We rely on the scientific method to help figure out what is going to make a difference as we make changes in our system. So that involves identifying what you want to learn about, come up with a hypothesis or make a guess at what you think is going to happen, and then develop a strategy to try to make that change. So in a nutshell, that means change one thing at a time. Don't change a bunch of stuff. So if you think your speaker cable is making a particular sound, or you think your turntable is doing something, or you think your DAC is providing a certain type of characteristic, only change that. A lot of times we'll go in thinking that it's going to be component A, B, or C, and if you change too many things, you really have no idea which one it was that made that final result. So be sure and have a little discipline in it and just change that one thing. Listen, change back, and then compare those things. Be honest with yourself. For myself, I actually try to change my mindset before I go into these listening tests. I try to set myself up for this thing isn't going to make a change and kind of cleanse my palate and make sure that my mental chalkboard has kind of been erased. And that definitely has an effect. If I go in thinking, oh, this is going to improve the clarity, or oh my gosh, this is going to improve my sound staging, I almost always hear that in the testing. So going in with the mindset of this isn't going to do a dang thing, when I hear a change, I'm a little more open to it. I might even, when I go back, say, this is going to make the opposite change. I'm trying to prep myself for the fact that the psychoacoustics are playing tricks on me. This helps me to be honest about what I'm actually hearing. I don't want to get excited about what I think is going to happen. I'm really trying to find the real result. This helps us find the right solutions for whatever we're trying to solve. It helps us determine what the best recipe is going to be for a given component set. If you're doing speaker set, so this doesn't just apply to just components or cables or one particular item. This is also a good thing that you can use when setting up your speakers. But same thing, you're going to hear me stress this a lot, change one thing. So if you're trying to adjust your soundstage in your system, only adjust for toe, or only adjust for distance from the wall without adjusting toe, and then go back. Compare what you did. This is going to narrow the field over and over as you move down the lanes of these changes. It's like focusing a pair of binoculars. You move past what you think it would be, only to move a smaller move, and then smaller and smaller, and eventually you'll land on the focused position where it needs to be. Component changes are very, very similar in that way. Don't try to do a bunch of cable changes all at once. Don't try to do 5 DACs all at the same time. Your brain will get fatigued. You will have information overload. Try to focus on just a single thing that you're trying to determine. Once you figure out what that is, then take that knowledge and move on to the next ABA comparison. That will yield you much more focused results. Something that's really important during this testing is to remember that we have a very short audio memory. So when we're listening to things, our brain will, again, it wants to play tricks on us. So we will think we heard something. So try to reduce the amount of sounds you have in the room during this process. So when you're going A, B, A, try to do it as quickly as possible. Try to do it with little to no talking. Try to make sure that there's no other sound in the room, and that way your brain only has that last sound to really focus on. That way when you make the change, it will be a much truer comparison. The conversation about what you heard in the change is enough to throw off the experiment. We've had many a times where we've been making comparisons and we have to start the whole thing over because someone is too excited about what they heard and they just can't contain themselves. Do your best to be honest, take your time, and focus on what you're trying to explore. So we have a bit of an advantage when we do some comparisons here at the store. I have so many different systems that we can try out, and I'm very, very familiar with them. We have recipes that we like. Some are more detailed than others. Some have a warmer presentation. Some have grander sound stages. And again, we have the advantage of knowing what to expect from these systems. So if I get in a new component, say a new DAC or a new streamer, I can take that component from one system to the next and listen for changes. And changes is the word. I won't say improvements, I won't say detractions. I'm looking for changes. And the thing that stays consistent amongst these different systems, that's very likely the characteristic that's at the front of whatever change I made. So if it's a DAC that has better bass, if I notice that on this system it has a bigger soundstage, but it has better bass, and I go to the next one, it has a smaller soundstage, but it also has better bass, then the soundstage may not be a function of the DAC, but that thing that stayed the same through all these systems, the better bass in this example, that's the thing to pay attention to. A lot of times we hear a multitude of changes, but that could be the acoustics of the room. That could be the rest of the formula of the system. So the things that stay consistent from test to test to test, that's the characteristic to pay attention to. That's very likely the hallmark of whatever component you're testing out. So if you're using this testing system to try to find an actual upgrade and not just explore all the types of sounds we can make, one of the things that we look for at soundings is the musicality. What do I mean by that? The ability for a system to deliver the music in such a way that we might even forget what we're doing. Sometimes the upgrade is so good that we just start listening to other music and we kind of just get lost in what's happening. That's probably the best compliment that I can give a particular upgrade, because that means we found the secret sauce to the point where we're just distracted by how good the music is. Emotionally, it becomes so engaging that that's all we want to do. If we find that we're looking at our watch, remembering that we got to check that email, I need to return that phone call, thinking about other things I need to do in the day, then that's a little less interesting. So that's something also to pay attention to. It may not be a particular thing like clarity or treble or bass or soundstage size, but think about how engaged you are. That's something that takes a little more experience to notice that it's happening, but if all of a sudden you forget that you're supposed to be testing out something, that's probably a good thing to do. That's a lot of times when we know that we've struck gold on the next upgrade for a particular system. Sometimes as we compare items on the different systems throughout the store, we'll find that maybe it makes less of a change. Sometimes a system may not be resolving enough to really pull out everything that this upgrade has to offer. So that's important to note. And as you're hearing reviews online, as you're reading about these things, you may have one reviewer that gives all the superlatives. This is the best product X that I've ever had in my system, or the next guy says, well, I didn't really hear anything. That could be down to how they set things up, how the room is, or maybe the system difference is just too great for one system to really pick up all of the benefits of a particular thing. I remember one time I went to a friend and client's house where I took a DAC out, and it was a much more expensive DAC than what he was using, based on the same DAC chip, but there were a bunch of other bells and whistles that were in there that were supposed to make the one that I brought out better. But ultimately, I had to be honest with myself. When we did the ABA testing, the one that he had was basically the same. It really wasn't worth the upgrade on what I brought out. And sometimes that happens. He had some components that were on the older side, and as good as some vintage equipment is, in his particular system, just wasn't as resolving as some of the stuff we had at the store. When he brought in his component to our store, we were able to hear differences that were just not available on his system. So that's a reality that sometimes happens. And again, being honest with ourselves about what we heard is really important. Sometimes you may not get the benefit that someone else was able to find. I know I'll get some detractors out there that think ABA testing isn't enough and that the psychoacoustics are too much to overcome, that if we're in the moment trying to find these differences, then differences you will find. And they feel that, I've got to live with this system for a week or a month or however much amount of time they feel is needed. I don't think that's a bad thing, because if I do an in-home demo for someone, if I bring it out to their system, they're going to be much more attuned to their system than I am with their system, just like I'm more attuned with the things here at our store. That's why we think in-home demos are important. But I do think that that ABA testing is effective. If you're in the camp where you want to live with it, you want to become so familiar with it that it becomes like your own system, when you go back to the other one, it's really important to make sure that both pieces are warmed up in the same condition. Because I've been in shootouts where someone has a piece that they've had on for a month straight, it's never been turned off, and we put back the other one and they just flip it on and go. Well, it doesn't sound as good. Well, go figure. I mean, this other one has had lots of playtime. It's warmed up. It's playing the best music it's played. And so, of course, we're going to have this dramatic difference. So you want to make sure that you're putting everything on that same playing field. And again, having as few variables as possible. So I'm not saying that long-term demos don't work. I just think you can accomplish a lot off short-term demos as well. All right, well, I hope that's helpful. I hope that viewers out there are able to use this knowledge to help with finding their next upgrade. As always, like and subscribe if you did like the content we put out there. Feel free to give us a call here at the store or drop by. Be happy to show you this type of demo method in person. I think that it will be enlightening to a lot of viewers and a lot of listeners. Thanks again for tuning in.